A socially awkward programmer yearns to know the meaning of life. One day, his boss gives him a big project to work on until he encounters two people that'll change his life. Qohen Leth, who lives in a church and refers to himself by plurals, finishes his project for Mancom, a company he works at. He quickly picks up his ringing telephone but is disappointed when the call isn't what he's expecting. He then prepares to go to work and unlocks his heavily locked door. Outside, the urban city's bright colors and loud sounds welcome him as he walks down the street. The man avoids people and waits for the bus with a headache from overstimulation. At Mancom, Qohen receives a call confirming his health checkup for later. His supervisor, Joby, arrives and tells him to cancel it since he needs to pass a project. But surprisingly, Qohen submits it. He dreads working on site because he's been waiting for a call at home. But Joby doesn't take it seriously. The programmer then threatens to report to management, so the supervisor immediately says he'll try helping him. Later at the appointment, Qohen claims that he's dying, thus needing a disability leave to work at home. A doctor mentions that he's perfectly healthy in his tests, so Qohen says his hair fell off. They explain that it's normal, deny his disability request, and then refer him to an AI therapist. When Qohen returns to work, Joby invites him to a party where Qohen might be able to talk to management about his concerns. Afraid of parties, the socially awkward man rejects the invitation, but his supervisor insists on his attendance. Later that night, Qohen arrives at the venue, and Joby invites him to the eccentric party. The concerned man immediately looks for management, but his supervisor tells him to have fun before leaving. Shortly after, a woman flirts with the awkward man, but he ignores her. As he avoids the people dancing, someone accidentally shoves him into a dark room. He sits down in silence, but he's taken aback after seeing management seated on a chair across from him. Qohen then opens his concern about wanting to work from home so he won't miss the call that will tell him his purpose in life. Management calls him insane, so the programmer disappointingly leaves the room. While Qohen leaves the party, he bumps into Joby. People overhear Qohen mentioning and talking about management, so Joby shoves food into his worker's mouth, causing him to choke on a grape. As he tries to dislodge the grape in another room, management appears again, offering him a project. Suddenly, the woman from earlier saves him from choking. He catches his breath and heads to the bathroom while the lady waits for him. He lets her inside, but she suddenly uses the toilet to his surprise. Afterward, Qohen rushes outside to find the management, only to find him gone. Then, he thanks the woman for saving his life and she introduces herself as Bainsley. Seconds later, she asks about his job, which he claims is to crush entities, a process of analyzing large amounts of numerical data. Qohen finds himself in an awkward situation, so he excuses himself and leaves. The following day at work, Qohen looks at a number written on his hand. Unexpectedly, Joby sends him home to work on management's secret project of proving the Zero Theorem, a theory that he must prove 0 equals 100%. Joby reveals he has also worked on it when he was younger but quit after 3 weeks. Shortly after, the supervisor leads his worker to the neural net Mancrive, the center of management's operation. Joby introduces him to a summer intern named Bob. Joby then gives Qohen his software for the project, claiming he might take forever to finish before he heads home. At home, Qohen tirelessly works all day and regularly uploads data to be submitted. Throughout the months, he repeats the project multiple times when the entities don't crunch. He constantly receives calls from Mancom, demanding to submit data before the due date. After relentlessly working for so long, the stressed programmer fails the project again. He rechecks his progress but has to repeat it since he only reached 97% instead of 100%. Moments later, he calls his therapist, who asks what brings him joy, but Qohen answers nothing. Suddenly, he gets another call about his next data upload, causing him to rant about the entities that won't stay crunched. The therapist calms him down, but he says he only wants to receive his call before ending the therapy session. The following morning, Qohen jolts awake after remembering the stressful work calls. He lights a matchstick and recalls Bainsley flirting with him and inviting him to her place during the party. He awkwardly refuses, so she writes her number on his hand. In the present, Qohen continues to work and his arm turns bloody from scratching stressfully from more failed attempts. He gets spammed with more update calls, so he smashes his telephone and computer with a hammer out of frustration. The next day, Joby visits Qohen and asks what happened after spotting the broken monitor. The programmer rants about the entities behaving strangely, hence having late data uploads. The supervisor says management will give the stressed man another chance, and he replaces the monitor with a new one. Later on, Joby unexpectedly says that he misses him. Qohen proceeds to vent about the call and the Zero Theorem, which seems unprovable because nothing adds up. Seconds later, Joby explains that everything adds up to nothing and that Qohen is close to solving the theorem. He claims that Qohen won't get the call if he doesn't relax, but assures him he'll help before leaving. Later that night, Qohen wakes up to Bainsley in a revealing nurse outfit at his doorstep, who says she waited for his call but didn't receive any. She adds that Joby was right about him needing her, and Qohen realizes she's the friend Joby mentioned previously. While Bainsley looks around the chapel, Qohen gets distracted by her body when she leans forward to look at his stuff. She finds a beautiful red couch, and he explains it's a gift. She approaches him and flirtatiously touches him before spotting his workspace. Then, Bainsley fiddles with the keyboard and suddenly injures her nail, so Qohen rushes to get a first aid kit. She stops him and asks him to kiss it, and he hesitantly gives her finger a quick peck. She complains it's not a proper kiss and shows him how it's done by briefly demonstrating with his finger. Suddenly, Qohen's therapist appears on the monitor, claiming that she's only acting this way because of her paternal abandonment issues. Angered, Bainsley closes the therapist tab before revealing her father died. Seconds later, she removes her wig, revealing her blonde hair, and mentions she doesn't engage in copulation because it's dangerous. The man becomes speechless, and Bainsley asks for something to eat. Moments later, Bainsley cleans the kitchen and notices him staring at her again, but she doesn't mind. She asks what the phone call is about while washing the dishes, and Qohen sits down, tired of explaining himself. He begs her to stop when she sits on his lap, so she stands up and asks what happened. He explains how he stopped longing for intimate acts and alcohol because he wanted to be different. One day, he received a call that he believed would give him a reason to live if he accepted the offer. However, he dropped the call and has been waiting for a call back. Bainsley claims she can help, wanting to understand him more, but only if he stays. The following day, Qohen wakes up to Bob at his door, urgently requesting to use the toilet. Suddenly, the boy barges in, rushing to the bathroom. The man is dumbfounded at how he unlocked his heavily locked door, but Bob only responds that he used magic. Soon after, two men enter the chapel and make Qohen sign a form saying Bob has been delivered to his home and they'll pick him up soon. After the men leave, Qohen begs the boy to stop calling him Bob, so the boy decides to call him Q instead. Shortly after, Bob tells him to order pizza, adding that his father, management, instructed him to help Qohen with the project. Later, while Bob works on the computer, he complains about the cameras his father set around the workspace to watch over Qohen. The boy adds that Qohen can't quit the project, and Joby and Bainsley are tools that management pays. But Qohen disagrees because Bainsley promised to help. Then, the man recalls when Bainsley showed him a VR suit, a project of his that connects directly to the brain. She gives him a suit, telling him to wear it and go to her website at midnight before leaving the chapel. In the present, Bob bargains that he'll get Qohen's call only if he continues the project. Before the surprise man can answer, the pizza arrives. Bob takes a bite and gives Qohen the rest since he has to go, but he'll be back tomorrow. The two men return to fetch Bob and the boy tells Qohen to trust him. That night, Qohen wears the suit Bainsley gave him. He plugs it into the computer and navigates her website, where he clicks a button to enter their imagination. Suddenly, he finds himself with Hare at a beach picnic with Bainsley. She says he can do anything he wants in this world since they're in their minds. She kisses his neck and Qohen says it isn't real, so she says memory chips connect them through their computers. After, she runs to the shore and throws a beach ball at Qohen, telling him to join. He catches the ball and follows her to the water, enjoying his time until he suddenly drowns. When Bainsley turns back and sees him gone, she finds him underwater and brings him to the shore. She performs CPR until Qohen embraces her, and the two passionately kiss. He asks if he can die here, but Bainsley says he's not supposed to before they kiss again. Back in reality, Qohen tells his therapist his doubts about trusting Bob to be responsible for him. His therapist assures him Bob's a genius and unexpectedly raps a song, shocking him, as he realizes that the boy hacked the program. The next morning, Bob explains that the therapist is a tool for Qohen and asks why he refers to himself by plurals. Qohen claims that a former therapist suggested it to connect more to humanity. Shortly after, Bob reveals that management is focused on Qohen because he works a lot. The boy then uses chalk to write on the chapel's walls, explaining how Qohen's mission is to prove that the universe will soon explode into nothing. Immediately, Qohen stops him, asking how he believes such a terrible thing. But Bob explains it's nothing to worry about since nothing's perfect. Bob adds that his father has been trying to make him work on the theorem, but he always refuses because it's Qohen's job. That night, while Qohen works, he decides to order a pizza. After he eats, he wears his VR suit again to meet Bainsley through the website. Back at the beach, he meets Bainsley again. He seems troubled while they watch the fake sunset that never fully sets, so she tells him to bring them to a special place in VR. While he thinks hard, they get transported to space, nearing a black hole inside Qohen's dark and empty imagination. Bainsley shouts for him to stop as the darkness devours them until they suddenly return to the beach. After witnessing Qohen's true state of mind, Bainsley kisses him and says to trust her since she can help. He kisses her back, claiming he can love her and do whatever they want inside the VR, but Bainsley disagrees as management won't allow it. Eager to be with her, Qohen argues he'll quit his job if management prohibits it and continues to kiss Bainsley. She immediately pushes him away, causing him to disconnect and electrocute himself from the VR cord and computer. The next day, Bob listens to music while fixing Qohen's VR suit, and the man shouts at him to be quiet. The man's phone rings and Qohen ignores it, so Bob irritatedly answers the call. The call says Qohen's next data upload is due already, but the man is still far from finishing. Bob helps him upload the data promptly and leaves to fix the VR suit. That night, Qohen revisits Bainsley's website only to find inappropriate comments from other men while Bainsley unclothes. She notices Qohen, but before she can explain, he exits the website. Troubled, he recalls when Bob mentioned management is paying Bainsley to control him. So he returns to the website, but his access is suddenly denied. Distressed, his mind begins to succumb to its emptiness. Weeks later, Bob shows Qohen the fixed soul-searching VR suit at the chapel. The boy reveals that the call Qohen is waiting for was only made up by his own imagination. Bob then calls the therapist through the computer and authorizes her to disclose the truth. The therapist apologizes as management told her to trick him, leaving his mental illness untreated. Bob comforts the saddened man, claiming he has to accept the truth even if he dislikes it. Unexpectedly, the doorbell rings, and the two wonder if they ordered pizza. When Qohen opens the door, he's greeted by a miserable Bainsley. He blankly invites her in and introduces her to Bob, the son of management whom she already knew. Afterward, Bainsley cries, apologizing and explaining that Joby said she could have the VR suit if she played along. She did it because he was lonely, but Qohen lies that he was never lonely. Bob recognizes her from the website and claims that a girl as pretty as her wouldn't want a man like Qohen. However, Bainsley confesses that she loves him. In disbelief, Qohen stands away from her and states that the man who loved her in the VR was someone else. She asks why he's afraid, but he ignores her by accepting the apology, hoping management will find someone else to do her job. Disheartened, Bainsley mentions her van containing all of her stuff is outside. She invites Qohen to run away with her, but he firmly refuses since he needs to get back to work. She longs for his presence and tries to convince him by saying they'll go to a real tropical island. Qohen stiffens, tearing up while Bainsley embraces him. Conflicted with his feelings, he still refuses, so she somberly leaves the chapel. After the emotional talk, Bob convinces Qohen to go to the park and listen to music together while they walk down the street. At the park, Bob asks if Qohen ever had a girlfriend, and he answers he did when he was around Bob's age. They even got married, but eventually divorced and never saw each other again. Seconds later, Bob opens up about not knowing any girls his age and expresses his worry about getting older because adults do the same boring things every day. He then asks for money to buy food, so Qohen hands him some while Bob says he misses Bainsley. Now alone, the man thinks about what Bainsley said earlier about running away together. Back at the church, Bob is shocked when Qohen refers to himself by singulars for the first time. Suddenly, Bob falls weak, and Qohen notices a fever, so he quickly prepares a cold bath for the boy. Later, Bob falls asleep in the bathtub, so Qohen tries to carry him to the couch. He bumps into the mirror, causing it to shatter and reveal a hidden camera inside. After moving Bob to the sofa, he smashes the camera with a hammer. Moments later, he furiously smashes every other hidden camera in his home and uses the chapel's benches to block the church's main door. He returns to Bob when suddenly, the two men barge into his house to fetch the boy, claiming Qohen's made a big mistake. Immediately, they carry Bob outside and say that his supervisor has been informed of his actions and they'll take away his computer tomorrow. Later that night, Joby visits Qohen, upset that he lost his job because of him. Qohen says Joby is management's tool, so Joby angrily insults him and leaves. Afterward, Qohen uses Bob's newly fixed soul-searching VR suit and enters the program on the computer. The cord suddenly electrocutes him, and he gains consciousness at the neural net Mancrive. He watches his home camera feed through the hidden cameras at the neural net Mancrive. Abruptly, management reveals that Bob has been sick ever since, then shows Qohen his empty imagination, explaining how the truth is the same as it was from the beginning. The call Qohen's been waiting for so long that would give him a meaning in life eventually led him to pursue a meaningless life, thus becoming the perfect subject for management's experiment. Management then bluntly claims he doesn't need him anymore and mysteriously disappears. Infuriated, Qohen lashes out, breaks the monitors with a hammer, and removes all the cables from the center. Instantaneously, the wires connect back to the center and it explodes, revealing the black hole and thousands of photos with his memories of Bainsley floating inside it. He turns around to leave, but eventually decides to fall into the vortex instead. In his imagination, he stands alone at the shore of the beach. While watching the sunset, he spots the beach ball in the water and tosses it up in the air. He then approaches the sun, plays with it, and lets it fall, letting the sun set.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.